Have you ever stumbled upon something so terrifying it made your blood run cold? Let's discuss the story of a young woman named Sarah. Recently, Sarah found herself embarking on a new chapter of her life. She had just moved to a quaint, seemingly tranquil town, a place where everyone knew everyone, and the idea of unease was but a distant thought. It was the kind of place where you'd expect nothing more than the occasional lost cat poster to disrupt the serene routine. But, as it often happens in such idyllic settings, things weren't as peaceful as they seemed. One evening as Sarah was settling into her new home, she began to hear something peculiar. It was a noise that originated from the basement, a place she had yet to venture into since her move. The sounds were hard to describe, almost as if someone or something was trying to communicate but couldn't quite get the words out. It was a chilling mix of scraping and thumping, coupled with an occasional low growl that echoed up the basement stairs and into the quiet of her home. At first, Sarah dismissed it as the house settling, the wind howling, or even the odd stray animal seeking shelter. But as the noises persisted night after night, growing louder and more distinct, a sense of unease started to creep into Sarah's heart. Every creak of the house, every whisper of the wind began to seem sinister, and the once peaceful town now seemed to hold a secret that was far from tranquil. The noises, the inexplicable sounds from the basement, became the chilling background score to Sarah's life in her new home. It was a constant reminder that something was amiss, something that she couldn't quite put her finger on. The dream of a peaceful life in a quiet town was slowly turning into a nightmare, and the basement, once an afterthought, was now a source of dread. Little did Sarah know this was just the beginning of her nightmare. Ever felt a presence around you, even when you're completely alone? A question that now haunted Sarah each passing day. It started subtly, a fleeting shadow in the corner of her eye, a faint whisper in the dead of night. But as days turned into weeks, these eerie occurrences began to escalate. It was not just the inexplicable noises anymore. Objects began to move on their own. A cup would be on the table one moment, the next, it would be on the floor, shattered into 1,000 pieces. It was as if the air itself was charged with an uncanny energy, a silent watcher moving through her house, touching and tampering with her things. Sarah at first dismissed these happenings as figments of her overactive imagination, but the sheer frequency and intensity of these events made it impossible to ignore. An unsettling feeling began to creep up on her, the feeling of being watched, of being not alone. The once familiar corners of her home now seemed intimidating, shrouded in a cloak of unseen terror. Despite the mounting fear, Sarah found the courage to investigate. She would stay up late into the night, straining her ears for any sound, her eyes darting from one shadow to another. However, each attempt ended in vain. No matter how hard she tried to catch the unseen entity, it always eluded her, leaving her with more questions than answers. The tension in her home felt almost palpable. Each creak of the floorboards, each rustle of the wind outside, magnified her fear. She was trapped in her own home, a prisoner to the unseen threat that lurked within its walls. Sarah was left wondering, was she truly alone or was something lurking in the shadows? The fear of the unknown gripped her heart, casting a dark shadow over her life. The unseen threat was not just in her house anymore, it was in her mind, turning every moment into a chilling ordeal. What if the thing you fear the most is closer than you can imagine? This is the chilling question that Sarah had to confront as she unearthed a bone-chilling discovery within her own home. The basement, a place she had previously considered as an unremarkable storage space, took on a terrifying new dimension as she stumbled upon a hidden room. Imagine a room shrouded in darkness, untouched for years, holding secrets that would turn Sarah's life upside down. As she stepped into the room, the air was heavy with a sense of dread. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of her own heartbeat pounding in her chest like a drum of war. Amongst the dust and cobwebs, she discovered a collection of items that painted a horrifying picture. There were newspaper clippings of missing people, each one marked with a red X. Alongside these were photographs documenting the lives of these individuals, their faces smiling back at her, blissfully unaware of the fate that awaited them. In the corner, a makeshift workbench held an assortment of tools that sent shivers down her spine. They were not the typical tools one might find in a basement. Instead, they were instruments of a more sinister nature, each one meticulously cleaned and carefully arranged as if they were tools of a trade. Her blood ran cold as she pieced together the evidence. The previous owner of the house, a man she knew little about, was not just an ordinary man. He was a predator, lurking in the shadows, preying on the innocent, and leaving a trail of fear and devastation in his wake. The basement, once a place of comfort, had become a chilling monument to his terrifying deeds. The truth had been unveiled. The fear Sarah had been feeling was not simply a figment of her imagination, it was real. It was tangible. It was in her own home. The walls around her seemed to close in as she realized the depth of the horror that had taken place in the very place she called home. Sarah's fear had taken a tangible form, but the worst was yet to come. Are you ready for a twist that will send chills down your spine? As the veil of mystery gets lifted, the unexpected happens. Sarah, our protagonist, stumbles upon a shocking revelation. The previous owner, who everyone, including Sarah, believed to be long gone, wasn't just alive but was living right under her nose. The hidden room, the source of all the eerie occurrences, was his sanctuary. The ominous shadows, the hushed whispers, all were not just figments of Sarah's imagination but a live man lurking in the shadows. The climax of our tale hits with a jolt as Sarah comes face to face with the real source of her horror. The unseen was now seen. The unknown was now known. But it wasn't a ghost or a supernatural entity that had been tormenting her. It was a man, a living, breathing human, hiding in plain sight. In the end, the true horror wasn't the unseen, but the man hiding in plain sight.